Just a note on wiring up the synthesizer. I've drawn up a rough diagram showing how it's wired up. The main unit being this, keyboard interface being this, and the Pro Solo being this. The Pro Solo is set to MIDI channel number 1, and the auxiliary control voltage which comes out of this port here is being driven currently by the velocity information, the MIDI velocity information. You can set it to pick up signals, other signals. Also, while I think about it, the Pro Solo converts both pitch wheel and the MIDI modulation wheel into modulation signals which are grafted onto the ordinary the control voltage signal. If you just listen here, I'll turn off the main oscillator. That's a clean signal. So in fact you've got an extra set of modulation sources which come through MIDI, which can be routed through the main control voltage, keyboard control voltage, but in addition you've got the auxiliary control voltage, which at the moment, as I say, is connected to provide velocity control, and that comes over here. The auxiliary voltage control comes in here and is used at the moment to provide offset for the VCA, that's volume, and also to adjust the cutoff, the filter cutoff. And I've just marked up the range of control you've got with both. In some respects you can use the filter cutoff on here to actually drive the filter cutoff and not bother with the one on the front panel in performance mode, but the main value of this knob here is really that it adjusts the amount of velocity control voltage which is applied to the cutoff. It's important to get these three in the right order. Quite often when I wire it up I get them in the wrong order. You've got the 1 volt per octave control voltage coming in here on the left hand side, the trigger in the middle, and the auxiliary control voltage on the right hand side. Sometimes with these plugs you'll find that perhaps it doesn't pick up the control voltage at once because there's virtually no current involved, and it may involve cleaning the plug, taking it in, pushing it out again, but in the end once you've fiddled it around with a bit, it'll be fine. Back to the Pro Solo. Mains power supply provides 9 volts, which comes in here. That's a wall wart. That's this bit here. That's a black box. MIDI in. That's from a keyboard. The main unit power supply is mains in at the bottom here. There's a green light there which shows when the power's on, and this switch which up is on. It's an American switch, so it's upside down. There's also 2 fuses there for the secondary circuit, the transformer circuit. That's the plus or minus 15 volts. The main unit is connected to the keyboard interface by this heavy duty military cable. It can only fit on one way round, unfortunately, so the knuckle at this end has to go to the left and it has to go on the keyboard interface, and the main lead has this straight connector on it, and there's a keyway, so they'll only go in one way, and as you put it on, that bit there twists to lock it in place, so it's a firm connection. It takes a little bit of effort to get it on, but once it's there it isn't going anywhere. I've labelled them up so you know which end goes where. Just a note about the modulation, low frequency modulation controls on this synth. I've extended the original Mini Moog. You can see over here you've still got the modulation mix, which mixes between oscillator 3 and noise, but you've also got an additional low frequency oscillator which you can adjust the frequency there, the wave shape, either triangle or square, the delay, you can delay the coming in of the low frequency oscillator, and you can switch the delay in and out there. In order to provide access to those low frequency oscillators, I've taken out the original mod wheel and replaced it with a joystick. The x-axis provides filter control, that's B, and the y-axis, the vertical axis, provides oscillator control. With these two types of input, or these three sources of modulation, you can set low frequency oscillator to both the oscillator and the filter. You can select oscillator and filter being driven by the modulation mix, the oscillator being driven by the new low frequency oscillator, and the filter being driven by the modulation mix, the filter being driven by the new low frequency oscillator, and the oscillator being driven by modulation mix, and both off. The significance of having both off is if you listen here, so there's no modulation at all, but if I put it on the setting where both the filter and the oscillator are driven by the low frequency oscillator, you'll hear a little bit of bleed through, which you can turn down, but you'll never get rid of it completely, and that's because the range of the joystick wasn't wide enough to encompass the full thing without a little bit of bleed through. So if you want the oscillators, the low frequency oscillator turned right off, you have to switch it around too. Just a quick note about the waveform select switch here. It's a little bit dodgy, could do with replacing really. In that position we've got the low frequency oscillator providing a triangle wave. You can change that over to a square wave, but the switch is a little bit wonky, so you may not necessarily, so it's working alright at the moment, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily connect through properly, and you just need to push it in with your finger or thumb if it doesn't quite connect through properly. On the tuning, the Moog takes probably about half an hour to warm up. Once it's warmed up, it should be pretty good. You can see the master tune knob is set there. That's calibrated pretty well to give you a normal concert pitch setting. You can hear it's pretty much in tune, but it does take about half an hour for it to stabilise, and once it's stabilised it'll probably stay in tune pretty good, because the oscillator card is a good stable oscillator card, and like I said, it's been calibrated pretty accurately.